Talknology for the 8th of November 2012, featuring John Hanlon from Google at a Glance.
Hey, this is Stevie Batich from Microsoft, and you're listening to Talknology.
What a great day today is. A, it's nearly Friday. B, John Hanlon is in the house from Google at a Glance, one of my favourite tech podcasts. John, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing great, Dave. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to talking some tech today.
We've got that big pipe through the Atlantic working overtime to bring John to you today. And we've got a smashing set of great talk to bring you as well. I'll give you a quick rundown before we dive in and talk a little bit more about Google at a Glance and John. So first of all, we're going to talk about the $4,000 reason not to copy images you find online. Some sobering truths that you need to know about. The new Samsung Galaxy camera, is it literally out of this world? And forget Toast, we've got Jam with Chrome. Social media and big events, what can we learn? And finally, and more importantly than anything else, John's Day in Tech. It's all coming up on Talknology. So John, $4,000 it cost a company called WebCopy Plus after they went out and used a picture they found online and then realised that there was some kind of law going on that made it very, very difficult to use it. Consequently, they had to pay $4,000, which was a bit of a problem. Very much documented over on their website that we're going to be providing on the Talknology show notes. But I want to ask you this question. You know, we all tend to go online and see it all as a free marketplace and take things and copy things and paste things as though it's just something that anybody can do. But there's actually a really serious issue behind this, isn't there? We've got to be very, very careful about what we do and do not use. And images are a great example because there's some quite sophisticated technology at work, isn't there, to actually track and trace pictures when they've been scraped off a website and used somewhere else. How do you sit with this whole thing about, you know, copying off the internet and using it on other people's websites? I mean, you must have had good examples yourself of where this has happened and where this has really caused quite concern for people both who have been taken from or the people themselves who have actually done the taking in the first place.
I think it's a tricky issue. I mean, on the one side, like you said, you've got the content creator, the guy who's created this photo or posted it. But on the other side, you've got, you know, the internet is a free place, and most of the time you think if I use this photo for something, if I copy it and put it somewhere, you know, nobody's really going to come after me. There's not going to be any big deal. I'm just simply copying it and putting it in another place. So, but that's really not the case. And I know I'm always confused by, you know, copyright laws and all those things like that. And am I going to get in trouble with this? And it's very confusing. And I think it's very hard to for people to figure out, am I allowed to use this image? Am I allowed to use, and not just images, but whether it's a video, music. Yeah. Music is a big deal, especially in the podcast world, as you know, Dave, with people using copyright music, and you got to make sure you have the right music or you could get in trouble with that. And just copyright material in general. And I think it's a confusing issue, but there are companies and people who want to protect their property and protect what they have created.
Intellectual property is a really big thing. And I have to say, you can tell the level of professionalism that John's brought to this show, because I'm sure it's throwing him a bit of a curveball here. I didn't actually tell him before the show we were going to be talking about this, but it's quite a weighty issue. And you've made a really good point there about the fact that, you know, ownership is so important. Intellectual property is something that's very, very big business these days. Just to get in there at the deep level, I'm just going to throw in a couple of links that people could consider just taking a look at. There's a website called compfight.com, which is like half of competition and a brawl. Compfight.com. You go over there, you type in what you're looking for in the way of an image, and then it'll show you loads of examples, and you can filter down by whether you're going to just be using this for personal use, whether it's going to be for commercial use. And then if you choose the commercial filter, filter and you're looking for a picture for your business website, you can just go in there and you can copy and paste that onto your website with the correct attribution, of course, which is fantastic if you can't be bothered getting your camera out. And we'll be talking about a camera that you can capture photos with in just a minute. And just while I remember, John, because we have gone off on a bit of a tangent here, which is always the best way to start a show, I wanted to talk about jewelbeat.com, which is jewel as in the rare gem jewel, beat.com, which basically lets you download royalty-free music for any of your online projects for 99 freaking cents. So there's no excuse to go nicking stuff now, kids, because it's all out there and it's virtually gratis anyway. John, I was interrupting you. Did you have anything else to add on that?
I think you pretty well said it. Well, just one more quick thing on there is that we sort of hinted at this, but the internet is, people look at the internet as it's kind of a free place that you can do anything on. And that's really not the case. There are, like I said, there are people who are, defend their intellectual property because they worked hard at it, whether it's a video, regardless of the media. And, if you take that's the way they make money. So it's not really a free place where you can just do anything you want.
You wouldn't go and rob Granny in her own house, so don't go and rob something off somebody else's website, capiche, the end of, like that.
Right.
Very well said.
Right.
Let's get digital. Digital, I want to get digital. Can you hear my laptop duck?
Samsung Galaxy camera. Now, John is about the biggest expert outside of Matt Cutts that I know of Google. Now, Sergi and Larry might have something to say about that, but, I know John and I know he knows stuff, and that's all that matters. And Google produced the Android operating system, and that's exactly what's inside the box of the Samsung Galaxy camera, which made its debut yesterday stroke today, 7th stroke 8th of November, over here in the UK. £399 on an exclusive buy over at jessops.com. Obviously, the link to that will be in the show notes. Now, 21 times zoom, that's a manual zoom, not a digital zoom. I'm meaning a physical zoom, comes as standard. Voice control, you can edit stuff in the box after you've taken the picture, so you don't need to take it to your computer. And most of all, apart from the fact that it's got Android operating it, so you can do a load of funky stuff in it, you can actually share it to your social networks from the freaking camera. This is a class-leading product because it's the first of its type in this market space. I don't know if you've had a chance. In fact, we might have talked about this ourselves on Google at a Glance when it was kind of an apple of the eye, John. We may not have done. But if you've had a chance to have a quick look at it, what do you think about it? Because it seems like quite a decent price for what effectively is a computer and a camera.
I have taken a look at it, and it's a very interesting product. So usually you think of a smartphone that has a camera built in, but here is a camera that has a smartphone built in. And it is, if the UK version is the same as the one in the US, it actually does not connect to a cell phone network. It does not have a data connectivity, but you can, of course, connect it to Wi-Fi and then share photos that you take with the camera directly to Facebook or Twitter, or any social network, or anything you can normally do with the Android operating system. And it's got this big camera built in that hopefully will take much better photos than any camera phone that you have used in the past. So I think it's an interesting product. I'm not sure if it will really take off, just because, like I mentioned, every phone that's coming out already has a camera built in, and the cameras are actually pretty good in the iPhone and the newer Android phones. The cameras are very good in these phones, and do you really need a separate product that is a phone built into a camera? Or it's not even a phone, because you can't make calls since it has no data connectivity. It is not connected to the cell tower, so you can't make calls. All you have is the ability to do stuff over Wi-Fi, which is a lot you can do, but you can't make calls. So you still need a phone in addition to this. So I'm going to have to say it's an interesting product. We may see some form of it take on a little bit later, but I can't see this product really taking off.
They're calling it a smart device hybrid. It runs a 1.4 gig quad-core processor. All good stuff for geeks like ourselves. Won't mean a jot to the man in the high street, which makes a lot of sense, really, because all they want is a camera that takes good pictures. And more these days, the social element being so important. They want to get them out there on Facebook as quickly as they can. But you're absolutely right. The Nokia 808 PureView, which was a 43 megapixel camera phone, was pleasing some people. It was unique, it was innovative, the pictures were blooming great, just as they are in the new Nokias. I mean, I'm happy with the way things are going, and I think they're trying to muscle in. It's a bit like the iPad mini to me, John. They're trying to muscle in a segment, but there's either people who are already doing a better job for them, but they're obviously thinking, okay, well, listen, if we can squeeze an actual operating system in it to make it feel like a computer, then obviously it's convergence, isn't it? But maybe not for the right reasons, just for the reasons that, hey, we can do it now. We can squeeze chips into this small form factor. We can get a 21 times zoom in here as well. Is it a jack of all trades and a master of none then, John?
I would think so, and I would have to ask them what market it is that they are gearing this device toward. It has a really big 4.7-inch screen, which is a very large screen, larger even than the new Nexus phone, which I think we'll be talking about in a second. But it's a very large screen there. But who is it that this device is geared toward? Is it geared toward the non-techie types who are looking for a point-and-shoot camera? Is it geared toward the techie types that want a really good camera along with their smart device? I'm kind of wondering, because I don't think it really fits either of those. If you're a techie person that already has a great, if you're a techie person, you probably have a separate, SLR camera or some kind of a nicer camera, and you really don't need anything better in the point and shoot department than what your phone gives you. And if you're a non-techie person, you're not going to want a device with all of this Android stuff going on with it. In addition to your camera, you just want a camera that can take photos, puts it on an SD card or whatever the case may be. And I'm just confused on who they're gearing this toward. And again, I don't think it's going to take off, because I don't see any group of people really going out to purchase these.
I think the Galaxy ecosystem and the fact that Samsung are growing all these products around this Galaxy brand is interesting. Don't know where they're going to take it. I like the fact that they say that the Galaxy camera understands precisely what you want. Just tell it what to do. Well, isn't that a camera? I don't know. It's all a bit of marketing hyperbole as far as I'm concerned. It'll be interesting to see how this one sinks or swims, and I think we've both decided which way that's going to go.
Here's Dave Thackeray.
You don't know what you're dealing with.
Now, John, you mentioned about the Nexus devices, and the Nexus devices were actually in profile at Google. I should say Google, shouldn't I? At a glance, that was episode 71, the latest issue of this fantastic podcast over at netcaststudio.com/Google-glance, where you talked about the incoming Nexus 4 smartphone and the new, much bigger than Nexus 7, Nexus 10 tablet. I think the number might give away just how big that is, but these are debuting in the UK on Tuesday. That's November the 13th. Now, John has got lots of information to share about these. What are your impressions, John? We've had the iPad mini, like we mentioned. They've updated everything. There's gadgets all over the shop. How do these rate?
I think they're interesting, because we've seen, for anybody who isn't familiar with it, I'll try to explain it in 30 seconds, which I've tried to do before. I was a guest actually on the Waves of Tech podcast, and I tried to explain the difference between the Nexus devices and all other Android devices, and I'm not sure I succeeded, but I'll try again here now that I have some
You've
practice.
Had practice.
Yeah. So the Nexus devices, for anybody who doesn't know, just to give you an overview, is running Android and only Android. So if you go into a cell phone store, if you go into any place that sells Android phones and you pick up a phone there, it is going, that device is running Android, but it has several differences between the real pure Android experience, and those differences are added on by either the manufacturer, whether it's HTC, Motorola, Samsung, Sony, whoever it may be, and also there are things added on from the carrier, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, AT&T, or whatever carrier you may have, and then so there are lots of changes in there, whether it's user interface or applications that have been added that are different from the pure Android-only experience that is in the Nexus devices. So we've had several Nexus phones in the past, the Nexus 1, the Galaxy Nexus, several different Nexus devices. But so this is the latest version of the Nexus device line. And the first one up is the Nexus phone, the Nexus 4 it is being called. And it has a very large 4.6-inch screen. and it is running a brand new version of the Jelly Bean operating system, which is what Google always names their Android operating systems after some type of a dessert or a candy, and the latest version is called Jelly Bean, and the Nexus 4 is running that latest version. And the one interesting thing here, not only is it the pure Google experience, but you actually don't have to purchase you can't purchase the phone on contract. So normally when you purchase an Android device, it is on contract, and you get a discount off the price when you agree with a contract to do a contract with a cell phone carrier. But this phone, they actually brought the price all the way down, starting at $300. And
£239 here in the UK, which seems almost too good to be true, because this is bleeding edge technology, isn't it, inside this?
Right, definitely. And that is the off-contract price. So that is, you don't have to agree to any contract. You can go on Google's website as soon as they become available and purchase the Nexus 4 for that price. And you don't have to worry about signing up for a contract. That is just the purchase price that anybody can purchase it for. So that's really interesting that they're going that way. And actually, I mentioned that they had a 4.6-inch screen. It's actually a 4.7-inch screen, which is a huge screen. I believe the iPhone 5, they just bumped it up to a 4-inch screen, but this is 0.7 inches larger than that. So really big screen. It has several features, one of which is called Photosphere, and that is actually a kind of a panorama mode on steroids, and it allows you to take seamless panorama photos. And that's just one feature, and there's all kinds of different stuff. And the screen is actually really, really good. It's 320 pixels per inch, which is, I don't see the resolution right in front of me, but that's a really, really high resolution.
How does that compare to the Retina display that we're starting to get used to with the iPhone 5, John? I mean, is that up there with them?
I believe it is very similar to the Retina display. I don't have that information right in front of me. I could probably look that up on like I said, the Nexus 4 is 320 pixels per inch, and you could probably figure out the pixels per inch real quickly on the iPhone 5 or even the iPhone 4S or whichever one you're looking at there with the Retina display. But another thing with the Nexus 4 is it is made by LG. So Google always partners up with a manufacturer, and this manufacturer that they chose for the Nexus 4, the latest Nexus phone, is LG. So LG made it, but again, they have not added on any of their extra stuff. It is only the Android experience, and so that is unique to the Nexus line, is that you're getting no manufacturer added.
You're getting Android as it should be, aren't you, with no imperfections added? Right,
and the manufacturers add that in because I think they're just trying to make more money for one thing, but they added in to make their product look different. So you could pick up two Android devices, and if you're not looking closely and you're not familiar with Android, you would say, oh, these aren't even the same operating system because they look so different. Samsung especially really, really changes the user interface, and in fact, they change it so that they've had some issues with Apple suing them because they change Android so much that it kind of looks like the iPhone and certain features of the Samsung devices.
Let me just mention about the Nexus 4 as well. The one thing that concerns me about this, and it's not exclusive to this particular smartphone, it just seems to the way things are going, the battery 2100 mAh, which is kind of average. They haven't added any extra heft to the smartphone really for this. It's a quad-core processor. We're not really be getting an awful lot of talk time out of this, are we?
Well, and it's really hard also with the battery. The screen is so large that it really takes up a lot of battery. So I have not heard from Google on exactly how many hours they say the battery will get you. Like you said, it's probably an average battery, so hopefully it would get you through the day. I have a Motorola Droid Bionic, which is about a year and a half old or so, and I have an extended battery on it, but if I had the normal battery that it came with, I think I would definitely have to recharge it sometime during the day. It would not get me through the day.
It's a great excuse, because when I have to talk to the mother-in-law, she does like to talk, and I suppose really what I want to do is get the most slimline, the most powerful phone I can possibly get, so within 15 minutes I'll have a justifiable reason to leave the call.
Okay, I guess you could look at it like that.
Let's be debatable on that one. But tell me about the Nexus 10 then, John, because that's the tablet offering from Google, isn't it?
Right. So the Nexus 10 is actually a brand new product in the Nexus line. So the Nexus 4 and the Nexus 7-inch tablet have both been around, the Nexus phone and also the 7-inch tablet. But the Nexus 10 is a 10-inch tablet, as you might have guessed from the name. And it is like I said, a brand new product that Google has not made a 10-inch tablet before. And the big thing on this is that the screen is actually better than a Retina display. As far as I know, it is the best screen on the market for any tablet, including the iPad, because the screen is on par or better than the Retina display devices that Apple has come out with. So it's a 10-inch tablet. It is 300 pixels per inch as far as the screen. And again, they partnered up with Samsung to make this, and the price also is a big plus. The 16 gig version starts at $400. So compared to the iPad, which is starting at $500, you've got $100 difference there between that's the lowest model of the Nexus 10, but it's starting $100 less than the iPad, and it has a better screen. It's running all of these new Nexus devices are also running the latest version of Android, and that's one thing also with the Nexus line is that Google promises to keep those devices updated longer. For Android, because, and this is kind of a complicated issue, but the reason that your Android phone may not be updated by your manufacturer or cell phone carrier is just because of all the changes they make to Android. And they have to rework every new version of Android that comes out so that it fits your device and so that they have all of their changes that have been made to it. So they have to work on that in the background. Well, with Google, as soon as a new version of Android is out, they can push it right out to every Nexus device because there's nothing they need to change besides making it compatible with your device, but they aren't adding anything in. Since it's just the pure Google Android experience, they can push it right out to you. So any Nexus device that you own is going to get these Android updates much longer than any other manufacturer's device, which is a huge complaint in Android. I don't know if you guys have this as much in the UK, but all the time in the US, people ask me, why is my phone not being updated? There are new versions of Android that come out every year, but my phone is running a version of Android that's 1, 2, 3 years old.
Well, I have a problem because under my breath I keep saying, forking Android. And I mean that in the non-cursey sense. Literally, it's that every time one of these phone manufacturers gets their hand on this pure operating system that is Android, they effectively fork it into their own version, which gives you these roadblocks. And let me just add to that as well, John, if I may, £319 for the 16 gig Wi-Fi version, £389 for the 32 gig flavour. No news as yet as to whether this is going to be coming out in 4G, as far as I know. Do you have any other news on that?
I do not. It will not be. Oh, and this is something I forgot to mention on the Nexus 4, which I don't think affects you guys in the UK, but here in the US, everybody was up in arms because there is no GSM version of the phone. Just
like there wasn't with Nexus 7.
Right. So it is only available, if here in the U.S. through T-Mobile or AT&T or anybody who uses a SIM card, but it's not available on Verizon or Sprint.
I think it's more of a kind of a domestic content consumption device anyway, and I think if you're going to take it out of the house, for goodness sake, here in the UK, go and get yourself a 3 MiFi dongle, which gives you incredibly cheap download limits, 15 gigabytes for about 19 quid over a 24-month contract. So don't go messing about with, trying to use this elsewhere unless you've got a really good Wi-Fi connection, because like John mentioned, you won't be able to get 3 or 4G on it anyway. This is all about the Wi-Fi. And this is why we bring John on the show, because John knows all this stuff. I'm bamboozled by all this information. It's very refreshing for you to actually get somebody on Talknology who knows what he's talking about. I'm not mentioning any names. So that was the Nexus 4 and the Nexus 10, and that was a bonus feature because we didn't even list that on the rundown to start with, John. Just goes to show how excitable we get when we play together. So, jam not on your toast, but on Chrome. I found this today and it rocked my freaking socks off, and I must stop saying freaking for some reason. I'm just very traumatised by the fact that Bradley Wiggins, the Tour de France biker, was knocked off his bike just a few miles away from where I'm sat in studio today, and rigor mortis set and I'm mortified. But anyway, enough about that, hence the freaking bit. Jam with Chrome is a way for you to build your own band with zero skill, all instruments provided in your browser. And you can gig with friends all over the world. Doesn't matter where they are. You can connect with them on Facebook, on Twitter, or just send them a link to your page where you've already set up your drums or your dubstep or your synths or your keyboard, whatever. I don't even know half of those instruments. I'm just making them up. But it's a fantastic bit of fun for the kids at Christmas. It's cheap. Just give them a link to the webpage. They can go and play with their new instruments. You don't have to buy them anything. It's called Jam with Chrome. It's at jamwithchrome.com. Built entirely in this new code, HTML5. It's brilliant. You can riff to your heart's content. John, you've not had a chance to have a look at it, but the technology that's powering these things, it's all about experimentation, and it feels to me that Google are just doing some really way out stuff there that's really rocking the web and showing us a glimpse into the future, isn't it?
Right, and I think that's, you hit on it there with experimentation. That's what Google is going for here, and they release these kind of interesting, more along the lines of fun than along the lines of productive products, like this jamwithchrome.com. And it is just to test the HTML5 capabilities and to figure out exactly how they'll work and to figure out any issues that people may report with them. So again, it's a fun product, and definitely go over there and check it out and see what music you can come up with. I think it's a cool idea, but Google is constantly testing the HTML5 waters, and as they see the results and figure out the problems, they are rolling them into their own products more and more. And I think we'll see that, who knows how this product will then be rolled into something existing, whether it's Gmail or Google Drive. I could list 1,000 products on where it could be, and who knows what the use they're going for. But they're testing the individual features of HTML5 and the specifics, especially on the back end of it, of how they can make this work for them. So it's interesting, and we see these type of products that are more along the lines of fun come out every once in a while, as Google is just doing more tests with HTML5 to see what it's capable of, and again, to see what problems may arise from it.
And incidentally, one of those experiments that was made public is the Google Doodles. And for your reference today, thank you to Google.com. We know that it's Bram Stoker's 165th birthday, one of the latest products of Google Doodle. And when John says he could list thousands of products, you know he actually means it. Right, now, a good point, well made. App of the day time.
In apps.
You might have a cheeky little bit of interruption there from RK there to introduce this segment. But before I get stuck in, just trialling something out. Now, I don't expect you to pay for nothing, because we are just rambling along, although John's time is vastly more valuable than me. He's a TV star, don't you know? But enough about that. We'll talk about that in the future. Audible.com/Talknology. If by any chance you fancy reading a book without your eyes, if you get over to Audible.com/Talknology, you'll get to try the audiobook expert Audible free for 30 days. But not only that, you can pick a free audiobook. I'm not going to go into all that stuff. I was reading a great book the other day, and I'll put it in the show notes because I can't quite remember who it was. It was Dan Suarez. I don't know if you've read this one. It's got John. It's called Kill Decision, and it's an amazing story about autonomous drones and a fictional scenario. But my goodness, it's gripping. I don't get my head into enough fiction books because this was in the Kindle. But if I'd have had it in my ears, I think I would have listened to it in a tenth of the time. Did you get a chance to listen to audiobooks, John?
I do, because I'm going to college right now, and back and forth I actually commute, so I listen to Audible audiobooks in the car, and they are the best way. I could listen to a radio station or something, but then it's going in and out because I actually commute for an hour each way. So audiobooks, you never have to worry about going out of the signal, and they're a great way. And the coolest thing about audiobooks that I found is if you can find one that is read by the author. And that is so interesting to hear it in their own voice, which you would never be able to get if you just picked up their book and read it. But you can actually hear their voice, hear the emotion or the the different ways that they read what they have written. So I think Audible is awesome.
Just a shame that the Steve Jobs autobiography wasn't read by the author himself. That would have been a treat. You won't find that on Audible. But anyway, audible.com/Talknology. And let's just have a little chat now about App of the Day. So, John, you've got an interesting Android app to share with us today.
Yes, I do. And if you listen to my show, Google at a Glance, you may have heard me talk about this before because I think it's a pretty awesome app. It's much more along the lines of fun and not so much productive, but it's called Field Trip. And basically how this works is as you are driving around or you're walking around, it will pop up on the screen and give you a little ding on your phone. And this is an Android app, but I believe it's also available for iOS. I'm pretty sure it's available for both platforms. And anyway, so as you are going about your business, it will pop up and give you a ding on your phone and give you just general information about interesting things that you are walking by or driving by. So most of it is historical information. So it'll say, hey, did you know there was a famous factory here, or this building burned down in 100 years ago, or just all kinds of different stuff, or this president used to live in this house right here. All kinds of different information like that, and it's very cool because as you're driving around, you pick it up. Even as I am driving around in places that I've lived my whole life, it's popping up with all this information that I never knew. And I think it would also be really cool if you were visiting someplace else and it has all this cool information. I think you would even appreciate it a little more. And I think that's where it gets its name. Field Trip, it's kind of like you're going out and discovering these new areas that you knew nothing about. But whether you're on vacation or even just at home, driving around the streets that you've driven around for your entire life, it'll pop up with all this cool stuff. And it's not just historical information either. There is also, it has some... a whole bunch of other information, and I don't remember it all off the top of my head, but there are all different kinds of different things. And one of them I remember is if a restaurant has recently appeared on the Food Network, and it will give you a notification of that. It's just different fun things like that. And this app is put out by Google, so it is made by Google, and upkeep is done by Google. And it's called Field Trip. So definitely check it out. It's a fun thing. It gives you all this information that you didn't know, regardless of where you are. And I've found out a lot of cool stuff through it that I never knew even about, like I said, this area that I've lived in my whole life. This
would be really good, I imagine, if you were living in a sprawling conurbation like a city where there are so many quarters. Right here in Manchester, this would come in so handy. I question whether it's ready yet for the UK, as most of these applications you get penetration into the US and then reluctantly move across to Europe, where apparently nobody ever uses the internet. I'm delighted to tell you, John, that it is actually Android only for now, so one in the eye for the Apple types, and Google will be sitting pretty, but it is on the way. It makes a mockery of the likes of Siri. It works really well, I imagine, with Google now. It feels like if you are a user of Google, you must be sitting very, very happy because there's all these great applications that make living more fun. And that's what Talknology is all about. If you want to make yourself smarter, if you want to get things simpler, if you want to be smilier, Talknology. And obviously Google at a glance is the place you want to be. But yeah, Field Trip's looking good to me. I like the idea of crowdsourcing recommendations. I know there are big inroads being made with one of your lot. Yelp, I think, bought some new site, well, not new, but I think they're based in Germany, to try and expand this whole sort of reviews thing over to Europe, because I do feel like we're the red-headed stepchild when it comes to reviews globally. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more of that sort of stuff here, and Food Spotting does it obviously quite well on the food side. But Field Trip, yeah, wraps it up really, really nicely. A top recommendation from John there. So that's available in the Google Play Store on your nearest friendly Android smartphone or tablet. I've got a quick one for you to make up for John's being 10 minutes long. Just kidding, John. Good job. Goofbid.com, which is an eBay sniper. Yesterday, I bought a switcher so that I could control two PCs using the same keyboard, mouse and monitor. And I looked on Amazon and it was about 30 quid. I thought, I'm not paying that. Ridiculous. I could get John on the show for that. So what I decided to do was have a look on eBay, and I saw it was for an indecently low price. And I thought, well, what I'll do, I've heard about these eBay snipers before. Totally ethical. Just means that you put your bid in at the very last minute to get the very best price. And I saw Goofbid.com had been listed. So I went in there, created an account. It will take your eBay account details, so that will make many people shirk, I have no doubt. But it looks ethical. It's been mentioned on MoneySavingExpert.com, one of my favourite sites, and endorsed there. So give it a shot, and I managed to get this switcher, Geek Level 10, for about, I don't know, £3 or something, instead of £30. Goofbid more than proved it's worth. You can buy a paid-for account. You don't need one. You can get it for free. But again, Goofbid, a bit like Goofy from Disney, minus the Y, with bid.com on the back end. Get it, and it's perfect for Christmas. Now you can go out there and buy your fantastic gifts for people on a shoestring. Incidentally, if you're looking for gifts, young ladies and gentlemen, get over to talknology.org/GGGG. Just remember the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. That'll get you there. Talknology.org/GGGG, which is the Geek Gift Giving Guide. And it's filling up nicely now. Vote up, vote down your favourite gifts. And if you're nice to me, I might even recommend to your other half that they go out and buy one for you. So lots going on in the gift space. And do you use eBay a lot, John?
I do, and I actually sell on eBay somewhat frequently. It just depends on what's going on. But I used to actually buy used smartphones and resell them on eBay. So I would get them on Craigslist or even sometimes purchase them off eBay if I can get them really cheap and then resell them on eBay. So I do have a little bit of experience with eBay.
Tell me, have you got anything on the market now? Anything that the listeners might be interested in buying off you? I don't know. Have you got any smartphones for sale at the moment? Or?
Unfortunately, I don't. I wish I did so that I could get you guys all over there to purchase it, but I don't have anything on the market right now.
Get it in the Geek Gift Giving Guide for next time. We'll get you in for 2013, John. Just get yourself ready for that.
Inspirational.
And we're going to be moving on to John specifically now. He's given us very freely of his time. We thank him for that, because even though he's just a youngster, and I mean that in the best sense possible, you know, he's got an awful lot of other stuff going on. He's a very clever guy in the world of politics. He does all sorts of bits and pieces, and obviously podcasting just one of his many passions. So I want to find out a little bit about John and how John uses tech, because it's very talknologista what he does. He's very clued up, very connected to the wired and the wireless world. So I asked him before we got together today just to think about, you know, a day in John's life and what he does using tech and stuff. So did you have a chance to have a think about that, John, just to give us a glimpse into the life of the Hanlon?
I did a little bit, and I don't know, some people may be disappointed if they think that I'm going to pull out my big bag of tricks here and pull out all my tech geeky devices.
You can make it up, it's radio.
Okay. I don't have to show anything on the video. Most of what I use is actually just on my phone as far as technology. Of course, I've got computers. I'm at an iMac right now. I've got a MacBook Pro laptop. But primarily, I would say my technology usage is with my Droid Bionic, which I just use, of course, nonstop, and with Android on there. And surprisingly, some people may be surprised at this, but I actually don't own a tablet. And my argument for that, which I sometimes bring up, is just that for me, it's kind of like if I need to do something with a larger screen, then I'm going to use a laptop or a desktop computer like the iMac. Usually my laptop is what I use. And if I need to do something mobile or with a smaller screen, then I use my phone. And for me personally, I have not really found a place that a tablet would fit in. Again, if I'm going out somewhere, I think my phone is probably good enough. And if I'm not going out somewhere, then I can grab my laptop and I can do it wherever I am. So I don't actually own a tablet, and that's kind of the reasoning behind that, which I know there are some people, or I know
people
it's a
have
huge
switched
amount.
off now, John. People are spitting at the screens as we speak. They go, no, I'm not listening to this man anymore. I've got a tablet. I've got a Samsung Galaxy Tab and an Advent Vega. They couldn't be any less stylish if I tried. So I'm down with you and those kids who are just waiting for the next big thing, because I think it's a half-baked product, to be quite honest with you. At the end of the day, I've seen some of the Microsoft Surface type tablets that haven't got keyboards with multi-touch, and they do give us, I think, a glimpse into the future. I love this whole, and you're going to have to help me out with this, because as far as I was concerned, most people were born with 8 fingers and 2 thumbs, which makes 10. However, some of these screens have 11-point touch. So I'm just wondering what you use for that 11th point. Anyway, that's a digression. But no, I'm down with you, and I like that. I would ask you as well, which is, we talked a little bit earlier about the Geek Gift Giving Guide, all things taken into account about what you've just said. Is there anything that you'd like to see for yourself in Santa's sack this year that's out there that, forms part of the tech jamboree? Because I think, is it Black Friday or Satanic Monday or something's coming up? Might be able to pick a bargain up there.
Black Friday, yes, it's coming up the day after Thanksgiving here in the U.S. There is plenty that I would love to see on Christmas. If anybody out there is looking to spend some cash on me, I would love to try out something like the Nexus 10, the 10-inch tablet, and maybe I would find a place for it again. And I'm not saying that there is no reason to buy a tablet. There certainly is, and there are millions of people who own tablets and they use them every day and they have legitimate uses for them, and I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying, for me personally, from what I have seen, that is my experience, is that I've kind of got the one and then I've got the other, the computer and the phone. But I would love to try out a Nexus 10 tablet and see if it would fit my style, or even the 7-inch Nexus 7. I had tried out a 7-inch tablet at actually the Verizon store here a while back, and I love the 7-inch size. It just felt right in my hand. I felt like I could hold on to it, and I had a grasp of it where I didn't really feel with 10-inch tablets that I had tried in the past. So I'm a big fan of the 7-inch style, and it would be interesting if I got a Nexus 7 or a Nexus 10 and see how I would feel about it. I don't know if I would have a use for it. I'm sure I would have uses for it, but whether it would be worth keeping, or whether I would just find myself using my phone and computer like I'm thinking I kind of would, but I haven't tried it out, so I'm not 100% sure. But again, I definitely am not saying that you shouldn't go on and buy a tablet, and there are lots of legitimate uses for tablets, and definitely check them out. And there are lots of great tablets, whether it's the iPad or the Nexus 7, the
Typical
Nexus 10.
Journalist, John, taking the words out of your mouth and turning them into jelly. That's what I do. But Laurie Page, in all seriousness, if you are listening in today at Google Glance, get over and just tell John where he can do the pickup, and you might want to supply him with a couple of cheeky Nexus 7s and perhaps one Nexus 10. He can give one away in a competition on this show, something like that. I'm sure he'll be chuffed a bit. Interesting stuff. Now, I did tell John at the start of the show that would be done 20 minutes ago. I do apologise to John. I know you're enjoying it. It's all right for you. You're just listening and enjoying the show. John's got to put some proper spade work in here. But we'll finish with one last thing that we promised to bring you at the top of the hour, which was about social media events and the impact of big things going on in America. Now, Hurricane Sandy showed us, brought into stark perspective, just how important social media is. Instagram had about 1.3 million photos shared that were vaguely related to Sandy as it swept the East Coast. Tragic stuff there. And on a more lighter note, Barack Obama, his election, the famous retweeted tweet, the 4 more years, now retweeted something like 750,000 times. I spoke to Paul Salt on BBC Radio Merseyside about that just yesterday. So here's a little bit of that coming up.
Talknology, here to make tech work for you.
And we'll stay stateside, because I'm sure you would have had to probably been on Mars not to realise that Barack Obama has won another term as the American president. And the words 4 more years alongside a photo of him and Michelle Obama hugging have become the most retweeted Twitter post ever. The US president tweeted the message at about 4 o'clock this morning, I think it was, our time, and it's had over 500,000 retweets. Now, Dave Thackeray is a social media expert. He's from Southport, and he joins me on the line now. Good evening, Dave.
Yeah, hi there. Twitter really has had a bit of a barracking, hasn't it?
Oh, very good. I see what you did. You rehearsed that before you came on, didn't you?
Something like that, yeah. 327,000 tweets every minute around that news you just mentioned. Absolutely stunning performance, and it just goes to show that this really is the era of social share, and we just can't get enough of it. I
mean, does it also underline just how big a role social media has got to play in politics now?
Well, it absolutely does. It'll be interesting to see, actually, come 2016, what this landscape looks like. It's not just about politics, though. I've got to say, every single big event these days is getting more than its fair share. When we had Hurricane Sandy over in America, Instagram, which is a social sharing app for photos, nearly 1.3 million images tagged about Hurricane Sandy. These are unprecedented times, and I think it just goes to show that we really are gossips born and bred, and it doesn't matter whether we're offline or we're online. We just want to share the news. We just want to let people know what's going on.
And really, to underline that as well, Obama tweeted that he'd won before he said anything, before he did his speech.
It's right. And a lot of retailers will be thinking the same thing now. Is like, how can we clamber onto this untapped opportunity? Because everybody who is online now, it goes through every single walk of life. We've really got to start thinking more seriously than ever before about the impact that digital has on our lives. So, good work, Barack. I just want to know what's going to be happening to Mitt's plane now.
Yes, indeed. I mean, David Cameron has only very recently signed up to Twitter. Do you think it's essential if you're a politician to be on it now?
I think if you're anybody who is anybody, or you want to achieve success in any type of business or brand, I think you've got to be doing something there. I think you've got to keep your nose clean. I think the problem with the internet these days is that not enough is known about what you can do on there. Everybody's got a digital footprint, Paul, and ultimately, we've just got to be aware of what we're doing out there, because it's going to be there for the rest of our lives, and just want to make sure that what we put out there isn't going to haunt us.
Now, I was reading today, actually, that apparently one of the key moments for Obama was his appearance on Reddit. Do you know what Reddit is?
Yeah, it's social sharing of news. It goes quite deep there. Basically, people break news on there these days. All these big major news outlets either go to Twitter or they go to Reddit to find out what's actually happening in the world these days. It's a stunning platform, and it really is citizen journalism at its finest and worst.
So, I mean, there's these kind of things springing up all the time. You know, at one point there was MySpace, would you say, the first one, and then it's really gone from there.
Well, I mean, it's bulletin boards that really kind of perpetuated this, I have to say. But yeah, I mean, really, in terms of gaining mainstream acceptance, it's Twitter. I mean, look, Barack Obama's got like 22 million followers on Twitter. He's behind Justin Bieber, he's behind Rihanna, but at the same time, he gained 650,000 followers in the past 24 hours. And, people online have more power than ever before. And I think the important thing is that he shows now, he proves to his community online that he's going to stand up to his promises, and he's going to show them that all of their commitment and faith in him is certainly not unfounded.
So when, Dave, then, will we be able to vote in an election on Facebook?
Well, it's been tried and tested before in states across America. They've tried it. It's proven to be successful. I can't imagine people going to be voting David Cameron back in. I think it's going to be a while yet for the UK, but who knows? 2020, you think all's going to be changing. But as we know, things change online second by second. So who can tell? We might be coming back and having the same conversation aghast this time next year.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That's Dave Thackeray there, who is a social media expert from Southport. Just telling you there that Barack Obama, he tweeted that he'd won, basically. He put a photo saying 4 more years alongside the photo of him and Michelle Obama, and it got above 500,000 retweets. Apparently the most retweeted message in the history of Twitter. So if you're a politician and you're not on Twitter, you probably need to be. It's BBC Radio Merseyside Drive Time between now and 7 o'clock with me, Paul Saltz. Kind of a few more items of news on the way after 6 o'clock as well. And some music as well is on the way.
Local, national and international news from the heart of Liverpool.
BBC Radio Merseyside.
Talknology is here to answer your questions about tech. Tweet Dave at Dave Thackeray and let the magic begin.
So, John, social media, it's an inexorable rise, isn't it? It's communications, it's whinging, it's gossiping, it's everything. What do we take from all this incredible movement, this noise, the traction, the growth of social media in our lives? Does it indicate just a general lack of focus on the world around us? Does it just show that we've found a way to communicate? Does it show that we are truly now a global village? But what's your take on how we covered ourselves as citizen journalists, Sandy, and obviously Barrack's greatest second win in the elections?
I think it's an interesting topic because on the one side you have people who say, social media and Twitter, they're kind of dumbing down the world. Everything is being put into 140 characters. Nobody's really giving their full thoughts, or their full thoughts are being minimized kind of, and being put into these little boxes. But on the other side, you've got people who say, hey, this is driving a conversation that has never been driven before, because we've never had the opportunity of social media for the thought exchange, for the just the impact it has on the world. And I think I may be somewhere in between a little bit. Of course, social media has a huge impact, and it is there are a lot of good ways that it's being used. I was just looking at an article here from CBS News here in the U.S., and it mentions in there about the storm Sandy, and it says that there were 10 pictures per second being uploaded to Instagram with the hashtag Sandy at the height of the storm. 10 pictures per second related to Sandy. So it definitely, information is being spread much faster than it has been before. And not just information by CBS News or these large news organizations, but anybody can now send out a tweet and get retweeted hundreds of thousands of times, or whatever the case may be, if it's something that people find interesting and find informative. And you're finding that with events like Sandy, you get people that are on the inside, and those people are now picking up followers. They are being able to get the information out about things like Sandy, or whatever the case may be, not to keep coming back to that, but just anything that it can happen with. And a normal person now, not just a news organization or a celebrity, is able to spread information and get the news out about something where they haven't ever been able to do that really in all of history. Even with the internet, you could sort of do that at the beginning of the internet, but with social media and Twitter and Facebook, and now that we are seeing mass adoption, which I think is a key point there, is that these social networks not only are there, not only are people using them, but there is mass adoption of not just Facebook, but also Twitter. And I think Twitter is where a lot of this really fast news and information is being spread, just because you can get it out in those short little bits, and it can spread so quickly from, with a simple retweet, and then it goes out to your followers, and they several of them retweet it, it keeps going and going and going, and before you know it, there are, like I said, hundreds of thousands of retweets on something. And I think it's really interesting now that just any normal person can impact the conversation and can contribute information to a news story, or even things that aren't a news story, just a human interest story, whatever it may be.
John, just a closing thought before we finish off for the day, and it's been a sensational session. I thank you many times over. You mentioned about 10 photos per second being uploaded to Instagram during Hurricane Sandy. I think about that, and I think back to 1984 and George Orwell, and I think about the storm, and I think about the tragedies, and I think about the dangers, and I wonder, is that indicative of us losing our minds? That our safety goes behind our desire to share news as it happens? Because that would never happen in my life. I'd be running as fast as the wind. Taking photos would be the last thing I do. Yet, clearly here, so many thousands of people are putting that before their own lives. Are we turning into drones?
Well, I think that's an interesting topic. We could probably talk for several hours about that one right there.
I'll give you 15 seconds.
Okay. I would say that it's kind of the idea that people want to share what's going on in their lives. And more people are sharing everything that's happening. And whether that is the storm that is coming up, feet behind them, right behind them, or their latest child that they just had and they want to post pictures on Facebook, 5 minutes after they're born. Whatever the case, I think it's the more social, and people are wanting to share every aspect of their lives that we haven't seen before.
Google, please get your driverless cars out there, because I've got a funny feeling we're going to need them more than you know. You've been listening to John Hanlon from Google at a Glance. That's over at netcaststudio.com/Google-glance, over on the Twitters at Google Glance. John, any other touching points that you'd like people to go at? Is there any personal basis that you have? Because it's fairly clear that now we've got a genius in this space, people are going to want to find you.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Dave. It's been a great discussion today. I am on Google Plus. That is probably the primary way to find me. Just search for John Hanlon, Hanlon. And of course, over on Twitter, also Juggling WJ, which everybody always asks me why is my username Juggling WJ, and that's because I actually juggle, and my website is Juggling with John. And so back when I created my Twitter, there was nothing related to John or John Hanlon that was available, so I got Juggling WJ. So you can follow me over on Twitter over there, and also, like I said, on Google Plus, just search for John Hanlon, and definitely check out on my show. Just if anybody isn't familiar with it, we just talk about general Google news and whatever's going on with Google, and we try to make it apply to how you can use their products to help you.
That's been Talknology for the 8th of November 2012. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Looking forward to speaking to you again tomorrow. That's going to be Friday, the last day of the week. Get the bunting out. The weekend's on us. Have a great day. See you soon.